Welcome to the first part of episode 5 of the Human User Manual. Let me start with something that might surprise you. And I want you to really feel this, not just hear it. What if everything you've been told about stress is wrong? You've been told it comes from your job, from bills piling up, from deadlines, from relationships or family, or the constant noise of the world around you. You've been told that stress is out there, like some invisible weight pressing down on your shoulders, shaping you, controlling you. But let's take a moment to step inside a real moment. Picture this. You're sitting at your desk, your phone buzzes, and it's an email from your boss, and it's marked urgent. You haven't even opened it yet, but your chest tightens, your breathing changes, your mind starts racing through possibilities. Did I forget something? Did I mess up? But notice what happened. The stress didn't come from the email. You haven't even opened it and read it yet. It came from the story you told yourself about what might be inside the email. Your imagination triggered your nervous system, not the event itself. That's the truth about stress. It's not what happens to you, it's what you say to yourself about what happens. It's not the event, it's the interpretation, your imagination. Because the meaning you assign to what's happening, that's what shapes your emotions. And those emotions shape your reactions. Stress isn't caused by the situation, it's caused by the story about the situation, which you create. The narrative running in your mind becomes the script your emotions follow. Now take a breath and let that sink in. Because when you really understand this, not just intellectually, but deeply, viscerally, your whole relationship with life begins to improve. You start to realize something powerful. The world does not decide how you feel, you do. And that realization, that moment of awareness, is a definite step towards mental and emotional freedom. Most people go through life believing stress is something that happens to them. They say things like, I'm stressed because my boss dumped extra work on me. I'm stressed because traffic is so horrible. I'm stressed because my partner doesn't understand me. But let's slow down a bit. Are these things really stress? Or are they just neutral events? Meaningless until your mind gives them meaning. Let me explain what I mean. Picture this. Two co-workers, Mika and Mike. They leave their homes at the same time every morning. They drive the same route, listen to the same radio station, hit the same red lights. Today, the highway is jammed. Horns are blaring, cars are just inching forward. It's like a slow-moving parking lot. What's Ken's reaction? He pounds the steering wheel, and his inner dialogue kicks in. Of course, this would happen today. I'm going to be late. My boss is going to think I'm lazy. Why does this always happen to me? By the time he reaches the office, his heart is racing, his jaw is tight, and his mood is gone for the rest of the day. As for Mika, she notices the same traffic and thinks, well, there's nothing I can do about this. But it's a perfect time to listen to that podcast I like. She takes a slow breath, sips her coffee, and smiles. They both experience the same event, the same traffic, the same delays, but they experience two completely different reactions because of two completely different internal dialogues. Ken told himself he was a victim. Mika told herself she had time to breathe and relax. The world didn't decide who suffered, their imaginations did. Late that morning, an email arrives. The subject line was, "We need to talk." Ken feels his stomach drop. His mind writes an instant screenplay. I must have screwed up. Maybe they're downsizing. What if I lose my job? His pulse spikes. His breathing shortens. That's not the email talking. It's his imagination. He didn't even read the body of the email yet. Meanwhile, Mika opens the same message. She reads it slowly. It's about a new client project. Nothing serious at all. She laughs, she shakes her head, and gets back to work. Again, same event. Two different movies playing in two different minds. Their imaginations. Your body doesn't react to events itself. It reacts to what your mind believes about the event. The body is just a car. It doesn't choose the destination. The driver, your thoughts, decides where it goes. When the mind whispers danger, the emotions obey. When the mind pictures loss, the emotions respond with sadness. When the mind imagines failure, the emotions produce anxiety. When the mind says, they're attacking me, anger floods in. So the real battlefield isn't out there in traffic or in your inbox. It's inside, between the ears. Stress is never a message from the body that life is hard. It's a message from your mind saying, I've chosen a fearful interpretation, and that is the wrong use of the imagination. That's all it is. Too bad they don't teach this in school. But here's where it gets tricky, because there's an entire industry built on keeping you in that fearful interpretation, the imagination of stress, doubt, and worry. Let's take a moment to observe. The news flashes red banners, breaking crisis every hour, because fear keeps you watching. It keeps you hooked. Advertisers whisper, you're not enough yet. But if you buy this, maybe you will be. Corporations praise the hustle and call burnout a badge of honor because exhaustion keeps you obedient. Even the apps that promise to calm you are often selling you more dependency. Because your stress, your distraction is profitable. A calm, self aware mind can't be manipulated. But a fearful, emotional mind, that one will click, scroll, and spend. And that is what it's all about until you're aware of it. They feed you a steady diet of urgency and worry. Each headline, each notification, all designed to trigger your mind to imagine the worst. Keep your nervous system on a leash. They don't want you peaceful. They want you predictable. Now let's imagine someone breaking that cycle, not escaping the world, but by transforming it from the inside out. She closes her eyes, takes a deep breath, and instead of replaying the same anxious thoughts, she decides to use her imagination differently, consciously, deliberately. She pictures herself standing on a warm tropical beach, The air is soft and scented with salt, waves rolling with slow rhythm, brushing the shore like a heartbeat. The sun touches her skin, not harsh, but golden and calm. A gentle breeze moves through her hair, and for the first time in months, she feels completely free. Her breathing slows down, her shoulders drop, her thoughts quiet down. She can almost hear the sound of the ocean sinking with her pulse. And something incredible happens. Her body begins to respond to that inner image. The tension melts away. Her mood lifts. She feels lighter, calmer, clearer, all from one simple act, using her imagination in the right way. Too bad they don't teach us this in school. Later that day, she realizes something profound. Nothing outside of her changed. Not her job, not her schedule, not her world. But inside, everything was better. That's what happens when you reclaim the story. When you stop letting the world hijack your imagination with fear and instead fill it with peace, beauty, and possibility, stress has nowhere left to live. So the next time you feel that familiar pressure building, pause. Ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? What am I imagining? Because the question alone can rewire your reality. You can't always control the situation. Life will still throw its surprises. But you can always master your interpretation, your imagination. And when you do that, you master your emotions. The same mechanism that once triggered your stress can now trigger your peace. All it takes is a new story, one of confidence, joy, and calm awareness. Let me give you a personal example that drove this point home to me about stress not being something external, but something that is actually created by the imagination. Some of you may know I love superbikes. I always have. I've attended superbike racing schools in California. So clearly, I know how to ride a motorcycle. I live in Japan, and there was a time when I temporarily lost my driver's license and had to take the test to get it back. I thought, no problem. I know the skills. I've been riding for years. At first, I decided to take the test at the police operated driving facility, mostly because I wanted to save money. It was much cheaper than going to a school because the driving schools in Japan are fairly expensive. It seemed practical, but the environment was formal, cold, and filled with uniformed police watching every move. Or at least that's how I interpreted it. Before the test began, my mind started spinning stories. In fact, before I even got to the testing facility, my mind started spinning stories. They'll be watching me. They're waiting for me to mess up. What if I fail? I could feel the stress building like a storm under my skin. Even on the train on the way to the testing facility, it already started. My hands trembled, my breathing shortened, my body stiffened. And sure enough, I failed. Not once, not twice, three times. Same bike, same skills, same track. But I wasn't at war with the test. I was at war with my own imagination. Eventually, I made a different decision. I chose to spend the money and enroll in a private driving school. And it was expensive, but it was worth it. The environment there was friendlier and more relaxed. The instructors there were calm, encouraging, and not intimidating at all because they want you to pass, because it's a private company. If you do well at their institution, at their company, you're likely to recommend them to someone else. So they're not like the police who are, they're very strict and regimented and so on. So it was an easier environment for me to go and do this. And you know what happened? I passed on the first try. Did I suddenly become better as a writer overnight? No. What changed was the state of my mind. Calm replaced fear, confidence replaced doubt, and performance followed. It's the natural cycle. That's the power of perception. And perception is based on your imagination. Stress isn't the event, it's the interpretation of it. It's the wrong use of the imagination. Let's imagine someone named Maya. Maya works in a busy office, open floor plan, phones ringing, constant emails, and deadlines stacked like dominoes. She's good at what she does. In fact, she's one of the best. After years of work, her manager finally calls her in and says, Maya, we're promoting you. She smiles, shakes his hand, and on the surface, she's thrilled. Inside, she feels validated, seen, and finally appreciated. For a few days, everything feels perfect. Her family congratulates her, her friends send messages with confetti emojis, and her coworkers tell her she deserves it. But then something happens. Something starts to change. The excitement fades, and the inner noise begins. The untrained imagination goes into autopilot. Now she's lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling. Her thoughts race like movies she cannot turn off. What if I can't handle this? What if I make a mistake? What if they realize I'm not as capable as they thought I was? The next day, she double checks every email, then triple checks it. She replays conversations in her head after every meeting. She starts to overthink every tiny decision, even where to sit in the conference room. What happened? Did the promotion suddenly become a burden? No. The promotion was neutral. It was just an event, a fact. The stress came from the story she began telling herself about that event. Her mind whispered, You're in danger. Not physical danger, but emotional danger. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, and fear of being exposed. Fear, fear, fear. Isn't that how society, especially the media, conditions people to react? No wonder stepping out of her comfort zone caused her to imagine the worst. It's how she was trained. It's how we're all trained until we're aware of it. And here's the truth. The mind does not differentiate between an imagined threat and a real one. To your nervous system, there is no distinction between a tiger in the jungle and a deadline that you've decided means the end of your career. Your mind fires the same survival circuits either way. So the problem wasn't the promotion. It wasn't the extra responsibility. It wasn't even her boss. The problem was the meaning she assigned to it. She replaced gratitude with fear, and the nervous system simply obeyed the signal she sent. That's how powerful your inner script is. You don't react to the world, you react to the story you believe about the world, the story your imagination has created in your mind. So the question isn't, how do I reduce stress? The real question is, what stories am I feeding myself that are triggering the stress reactions? Because the same imagination that builds anxiety can also build peace, confidence, and positive self esteem when you learn how to use it correctly. Remember this: if you don't learn to control your imagination, someone else will control it for their agenda and their profit. Let's go a little deeper. Because while all stress is born inside you, inside your imagination, it doesn't always start with you. Now, let me explain what that means. Sometimes it's installed deliberately, actually, quite frequently. How? By training you slowly and subtly to use your imagination in the wrong way. It's late at night. Two neighbors, let's call them Ayumi and Jordan, turn on the news at the exact same time. A graphic flashes, breaking headlines, red banners, dramatic music. A host leans forward, tone urgent, eyes narrowed. Words like crisis, threat, shocking pours through the speakers. And Ayumi feels her chest tighten. In her mind, she sees the worst possible future rushing towards her like a wave. What if this spirals? What if it's all going to collapse? What if I'm in danger? Her imagination, bright, powerful, and creative, is being pointed straight at dread, and it answers the assignment perfectly. She becomes so stressed that even sleep feels impossible. But she doesn't connect the dots. She doesn't realize that her restless nights, her racing thoughts, her anxious mornings are all the result of the crap she consumed on the nightly news. Poison for the mind disguised as information. But next door, Jordan watches the same exact segment. But because he is fully aware of the tactics of the puppet masters, he says silently, this is just another emotional hook, a political distraction, and I'm not taking the bait. He clicks mute, stands up, pours himself a drink, and gazes out the window at the quiet night sky, feeling calm, grateful, and deeply appreciative of its beauty. He connected the dots. He knew he was being played and chose not to participate in the puppet master's game. And that night, he slept peacefully, his mind was clear and totally unaffected. The same event entered two different minds and produced two completely different worlds and two completely different outcomes. Not because the world changed, but because the imagination was used in two different ways. Ayumi's untrained imagination slipped into autopilot, directed effortlessly by the puppet masters. But Jordan's trained imagination saw through the illusion instantly. He recognized the game, refused to play, and kept his peace, while Ayumi unknowingly danced to someone else's tune. There are systems, well funded and well practiced, that are built on emotional manipulation. Governments have known for centuries that fear keeps people compliant. When people are afraid, They stop thinking clearly. They obey. They don't ask why. They don't ask, is this true? They just follow orders. Religious institutions, some of them, and don't get me wrong, I have nothing against religion. I have something against using religion as a means of control. There's a difference. In any event, some of them use guilt and shame as a means of control. If you think this, you're sinful. If you don't do this, you'll be punished. And in some cultures of the past, punishment was literal: exile, violence, even death to the non believer. Now, I don't know about you, but when I went to Sunday school, the first commandment we were taught was, thou shalt not kill. It wasn't, thou shalt not kill unless you're a church. Think about that. Generation after generation, people were trained to fear their own thoughts. Because to those institutions, people who think for themselves, people who use their imaginations in the right way, are dangerous. Not dangerous to humanity, but dangerous to the institution's ability to exert control over the masses. Now walk with me down a grocery aisle. Bright packaging, careful lighting, 1,000 small whispers. Every label is a story about your identity. It's better if you buy this. You're more complete if you wear this. You're closer to worthy if you subscribe here. Corporations spend billions crafting one message: you are not enough yet. Because if they can make you feel less than, they can sell you the illusion of more. The tactics of this particular puppet master are not to make you believe their script. They're much more cunning than that. They trigger your imagination into writing the script yourself. Your mind starts filling in the blanks. If I just had that, I'd finally be happy. If I look like that, I'd finally be confident. If I own that, I'd finally be complete. If I buy her that, she'll love me. And once the imagination starts writing that story, the emotions follow: grasping, restlessness, hungry for a sense of completion that never comes. Because if you're complete, you don't need more. And therefore, that puppet master no longer makes a profit from you. Think about that. As for the media, they thrive on drama, outrage, fear, conflict. Not because truth lives there, because attention does. The longer you stay emotionally charged, the more ads they can sell you. The formula is simple: keep them reactive, keep them engaged, keep them predictable, keep them profitable. Your reactivity, your stress, your outrage, your anxiety is all leverage. Because when you're reactive, you're predictable. And when you're predictable, you're profitable. The more stressed, divided, and emotionally unstable people become, the easier they are to control, to sell to manipulate. That's not an accident. It's a business model. So pause with me right now, right here, inside this moment of seeing, this moment of awareness. Ask yourself, gently and honestly, how much of your stress actually belongs to you? And how much was programmed into you by someone else's agenda? Two people can watch the same news story One imagines the world falling apart, panic, hopelessness, contraction. The other recognizes the hook, the bait, calls it by its name, and returns to center, unmoved, sovereign, and free. This is where sovereignty begins. When you realize that stress is always born inside you, inside your imagination, and that external forces install it by training you to use your imagination in the wrong way, to serve fear instead of truth, then you wake up. And when you begin to use your imagination to serve truth instead of fear, to create clarity instead of confusion, that's when you begin to become dangerous to the puppet masters and priceless to yourself.